Hello again, this is Chef Selecta. Welcome to my kitchen. We're going to be making some beef stew, a basic recipe. This week we're talking about stewing. Okay, so that's one of the basic techniques. So here I have my beef. It's already cut into pieces, and these pieces have been salt and peppered. Put it into a very hot pan with oil. I'm going to sear it on each side. So these pieces are cut all relatively the same size so that they all cook about the same time. All right. This is actually beef chuck, which is a tougher piece of meat. Normally we would grind it up or turn it into stew. A longer cooking process, a combination cooking process like this, will make this beef nice and tender. So we're just going to sear it on all sides, make sure that it's brown on all the sides. I like to use tongs for this portion, mainly so I can turn each piece and make sure that the pieces are seared on all the sides. It's important to make sure that this beef has been salt and peppered beforehand. You could do it right now too if you forgot. It's part of my mise en place, so I like to do it right beforehand. That way I have everything, mise en place, everything in its place. And sear off only a little bit. Nice hot pan so it doesn't take too long with all these pieces. Now it is going to be a beef stew. Serve with some potatoes at the end, so we will nice little bite-sized pieces so it doesn't take as long. Alright, almost done. Okay, at this point I'm ready to add a little bit of flavor. I have my onions and some garlic that I have chopped up. Okay, we're gonna sweat those down, let them saute in there with that beef. Get nice and hot and release those flavors so that those flavors carry out throughout our stew. So we're gonna let that cook for another minute. And then what we're going to do, I'll talk to you about the next step while we're waiting for that to cook down a little bit. So the next step is going to be adding our flour. So what we're going to do is make what's called a roux. So the flour and the fat that's in the pan, so that's the oil along with some of the fat that came off of the meat, is going to combine with the flour and make a thickening agent, what we call a roux. So that roux will cook with the liquid. We're going to do beef stock today and really thicken up our sauce. And this is great. Roux need to be cooked down for at least 20 minutes so that it doesn't taste like flour. It just has that thickening effect. And so what we're going to do is, this is going to cook for about an hour and a half, so we'll be just perfect with our roux. Oh, it smells so amazing, that onions and garlic with that beef. Okay, I wish we had smell-o-vision for you. Okay, so I have my beef and my onions and my garlic. They're nice and translucent, so they're looking ready. At this point I'll be able to sprinkle my flour on top and really make sure that it gets in there and soaks up all the rest of that fat. Right? And it will be kind of pasty, it'll look funny. Don't be scared, it's gonna be great. So it's gonna actually attach itself to your meat and your onions, and you're gonna have a thick and pasty mess to start. But you can't just act now. You gotta wait another minute. You have to actually cook the roux. You want to start to activate that flour, let it cook. Scrape the bottom, make sure that none of the roux sticks just to the bottom. Really give it a good mix. Give it a minute to warm up. That flour needs to warm up. Roux is a cooked thickening agent. If we didn't cook it, that would be a beurre meunier. So that's at the end. When we want to use a thickener at the beginning, it's called a roux. Fantastic. Just let it warm up a little bit more. So it looks like everything's covered. Scrape the bottom real good. Great. Okay, now a couple more ingredients right before we finish. We have our tomato puree. This is concassé tomato, which has been de-seeded and peeled, and then pureed down. Add some acid to our stew. Oh yes, nice, good flavor. We're also going to add some red wine. Okay, this is a nice red zin we have. Okay. Oh yeah. And then on to the beef stock. All right. I can't tell you how much beef stock we'll need because everybody has a different size and a different size pan. Okay. So when we talk about the technique of stewing is when you cover the meat. So what we're gonna do is we'll put the first 2 ladles on, give it a stir, make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom, make sure none of the roux is gonna burn in a corner. And we're just gonna make sure that all the meat is covered by the liquid. If it is not, we have to add some more. If it's not covered all the way, we're not actually stewing. The technique would be called braising, right? So that's the main difference, is the amount of liquid you're adding. So for us right now, we do need, there's a couple pieces that aren't covered all the way. So we're gonna add just a little bit more stock. All right. Okay. So all our pieces are covered now. We're gonna let it get up to a simmer, and then we're gonna cover it and let it go. Okay. Stew can be finished 2 ways. It can be done on the stove covered, or it can be done in the oven covered. You pick either way, as long as there's constant heat and you keep it covered. All right, looks like we don't have any more roux stuck on the bottom. And it's getting nice and steamy, so it is about ready. Oh, it's almost at a simmer, and so we are almost ready. A couple more bubbles. Last thing is my sachet. Okay, I used my little loose leaf tea sphere I have here. It's got my peppercorns and my parsley stems, my bay leaf, some thyme stems, and bay leaf, peppercorn, parsley stem, thyme. And then so it's gonna float around in there and infuse this this dish with even more flavor, okay? You certainly can throw those things in and then fish them out later, or utilize cheesecloth. That's what we would do as well. I like this because I can reuse it, and I can use it for my tea later too. All right, so I'm gonna put that little ball in there and let that float around. Okay, it's got a little hook, so I can hook it right there. All right, fantastic. I have small bubbles, which is considered a simmer. So that's what we're looking for, is a simmer. We don't need it to be rolling and boiling, just a simmer. And then we can turn it down to a simmer. Cover it and seal it, make sure that none of the steam escapes, because if it's not sealed all the way and the steam escapes, what's gonna happen is you're gonna have a lot of reduction over the next hour to 2 hours. Yes, this is gonna take about between an hour, hour and a half. It's small pieces, it's about an hour, hour and a half. If it was bigger pieces, I would say all the way to 2 hours. Okay, and so I can now either keep this on low, let it simmer on the stove, or I could put it in the oven and we'll let it cook. We'll set it and forget it for about an hour, hour and a half. All right.